Great, welcome everyone, and welcome Bill. Let's go ahead and open up the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting, Monday, June 6, 2022 at 7 o'clock. Please stand for the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Thank you. Counselor Page,
Here.
Counselor Kendall,
Here.
Counselor Martinez,
Here.
Counselor Pippen, here, Counselor Sheldon,
Present.
Counselor Smith,
Here.
and Mayor Lenahan.
Here, thank you. Thanks, Lori. Item number 5 is our consent agenda, and we have the approval of the June 6th regular session agenda, and also the approval of the May 16th, 2022 City Council minutes. The one correction that I wanted to make noted is that Councilor Sheldon was not present for the May 16th meeting. We'll make that correction to the minutes. Thank you. Are there any other corrections or additions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
I'll move approval with the corrections.
I'll second. All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Item 6 is our public comment. This is the time we wish we ask the public to come forward to speak on items not on the agenda. Let it be noted that there is no audience member here at Jesse Mays. Lori, have you received anything via email?
Nothing prior to tonight's meeting.
Anyone online?
Nope.
Okay, great, thanks. For the record. All right, item number 7 is the, item 7A, excuse me, is the ordinance number 479. It's the economic opportunities analysis. This is the second reading and adoption. Can't imagine anything's changed from now, so from last time that we saw it. Any other questions or comments from council?
I thought on page 15, on the priority 1, there's a motion to change the reverse diversity trend language to just reverse the trend. Did we have to do a vote and have that change?
That's the way Planning Commission recommended it to you guys,
And we approved it, right?
and you approved it.
So it's still here.
I will let Heather know. She provided all this information, so
Page,
this is just the draft. So in the final, I'll make sure that it takes
Yeah,
out the
It
word.
hasn't been approved yet,
I see.
Yeah.
so upon approval.
Yeah.
change will take effect.
Okay. Thanks for putting that out, Council Page. Anything else? All right, there are, so we are going to need 2 motions. The first would be to conduct a second reading. Do I have a motion on the table?
I'll move to conduct the second reading of ordinance 479. Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion on the table by Councilor Sheldon, seconded by Councilor Kindle. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none. Ordinance number 479 title is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of North Plains, Oregon, implementing an update to the economic opportunities analysis and comprehensive plan. And now may I have a motion to approve ordinance 479?
I move to approve ordinance 479.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion on the table by Councilor Smith, seconded by Councilor Page. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. All right, we have 3 resolutions on our agenda tonight under 8A, B, and C. The first one is Resolution 2187, the Jesse Mays construction contract. Andy?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Well, very appropriate timing since we just moved through a CIP update. And one of the projects on there is this one, the long-awaited park improvement project at Jesse Mays. I don't think I need to rehash much of the history and everything in the staff report, but I'll just let you know that we did go out to bid at the end of April, and bids were due and open on May 26th. We had 4 bids. Peel Excavating LLC was the low bidder. Brian and his team opened the bids, did the tabulations to verify the units and the amounts and the work being done. And they did confirm that, nothing to correct in their bid. So unless Brian wants to fill in anything else, all the information is there, but we recommend approving this resolution to give the work to Peel LLC. And you approved another segment last month or last meeting to start ordering ahead on some of the materials. So those will arrive and they would be doing the installation of those as well. Brian, is there anything you want to add from what you saw or their bid package?
No, Andy, you're correct. I mean, we analyzed all 4 bids, certified that they're all adequate, and feel it is the lowest qualified bidder.
Any comments or questions from council?
I have a question. It's in regards to, it seems like we're getting in a bit of a, and I don't want to call it a habit, but we're in the resolution, which I presume is in the amount, it's listed in the fiscal impact to add an additional 146,000 in contingency for construction. And as far as I'm concerned, this bidder bid it, you better provide it for 1464. And frankly, I think if we're going to visit things that change the scope of the work, I'm not certain I'm in favor of approving that on just on a contingency basis. I'd rather have them, I'd rather see it and discuss it later. I'm not certain I'm in favor of approving a contingency to this project. That's the way I feel about it. And I think this seems like a road we go down. And I know it's expedient, it's efficient to some degree, but I think it's a bad habit to get into.
I get that. I totally get it. I don't want to leave a sour taste in your mouth or set up the process. It seems like, well, we're automatically trying to overrelate something. One of the reasons we feel we should do this, and again, whatever they bid is that's our contract with them. All this is authorizing is me, and along with the city manager, to use judgment. I'm like, all right, we need, this is a fix. We needed to do $10,000. Let's go ahead and approve that instead of, perhaps waiting 2 or 3 weeks to come back to council for that extra approval. That's all this is a buffer. The Cottage Street project is one example. That was another 15 grand or so that we had to do for some extra excavating and rock to fix all that really soft segment that was in poor condition. But we had a contingency approved there, and that way we didn't have to come back to the council to do that and kind of put things on hold for a while. So it's a give and take. I certainly don't want to abuse the council's authority, and that's why 10% is definitely the most I want to go. I mean, our goal obviously is to hold them exactly to what
What
they
should be,
did.
if we got it engineered properly, we know what it's going to be. And if he bid it for 1464, that's what he's going to put it in there for.
Yeah,
I shouldn't be making any wide swings at the scope at a late stage of the project, as far as I'm concerned, once it's engineered. That should be pretty sad to me. I mean, I know that there's some things that can come up, but I would rather discuss those when they do, rather than just giving a blind 10%, because at this point, we're going to be in this park for $2.5 million, but I count it all up. So, that's a lot of money.
Any other comments?
Okay, so I understand you, if I may. So you say, if you leave it in, but you want to come before council on anything that's spent of that one, of that 10%.
That would be my preference.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. I just want to be, okay, so if you leave it in, but you want that avenue.
Or a much lesser contingency. I think 146, I realize it's 10%, but I mean, what are we expecting?
Yeah,
I mean, this should be planned out, and if they bid it for that amount, I think it just sends a signal to the bidder that, you know, if something's found, they're somehow gonna, you know, get away with getting more money out of the contract.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I would agree too. I know that Councilor Sheldon and I had a conversation about this and having it, although I totally appreciate the expediency that you were trying to present, Andy, I feel that if there is a hiccup or whatever on a project this large and this important, I would want it to come back to city council so we could have a conversation about it, just to know, you know, what is it? I mean, it could be, you know, God forbid, something more than 146,000, you know, we could get into it and say, oh my gosh, you know, we have this way like $500,000 issue now. But I think it's just a great way to, so we can all know what's going on, accountability is there. And again, you know, if we got this bid for 1.4, then this company should be able to do it within that scale, within that dollar amount, in my opinion. Any other comments? Councilor Martinez, do you have any input?
No, but I would support your guys' comments in that. I think it would be valuable.
My only thing is, why 146? It's a round number, 10%, but what could go wrong? I mean, earthquakes, and I understand that, right? But realistically, are we gonna find uranium? We had to, you know, we're gonna find this.
Well, I know that there's been digs out here before on this site, and I think things were, this is previous public works director Blake telling me other things were excavated, and I don't know, because this was an old school, I don't even know what it was before that. You may come across some things. No, we're not planning to do any, you know, major soil removal and remediation or anything like that, thankfully, as part of this project. But these are basically unexpected surprises. We're having to do all on-site water detention. Maybe there's an issue there. Again, would the goal be to not spend $146,000 extra? Absolutely. But could I guarantee we wouldn't have to go 10,000 over? Probably not. I mean, every project has change orders. That's just the nature of it. I'm happy to go with whatever the council's wishes are. And if that seems like an extreme number, we can totally talk about that.
I would love to see it go down like 25,000 or 20,000 or something more along the lines of something that could actually happen. This sounds like we're in a blank check, and the feeling we get, I guess, like we have the extra money just in case something happens, so people tend to spend extra money. I mean, it's there, right? So it just seems fine, and not having to stop the job, but if it costs more than $25,000, you probably should stop the job and then ask us, I think. I don't know, I just pulled 25,000 excessive round number too. I don't know what the number there is. But I know the number 146,000 is too much.
Councilor Smith?
We have my question, we have 4 bids. Do we know anything about each of the contractors bidding? The reliability, especially the one we're going to go with?
Field Construction's been around, or Inc. has been around for a long time. I've worked on numerous projects, not a, you know, a playground facility, but they do have the experience on that one. They've done a lot of building structures, vineyard constructions, road projects, water line projects, so they've been around. The only thing I would, and I understand and I hear you guys about the contingency. It's not what was bid, it's what we don't know. So when you open the ground, sometimes it's the unknown. You might find an oil tank there. Well, that's not on the plans. So how's the contractor gonna get paid for it?
So we're just gonna redo the surface, right? We're not gonna excavate, isn't that?
But you're redoing the park and the playground, but as part of that, we had to put in a detention and water quality because you were adding impervious area, you're changing that. So that's in the parking lot. So we're digging down probably a good 6-7 feet in the park, in portions of the parking lot. There's unknowns. That's what we're talking about. It's not a contingency on the approved plans, the bid plans. That's locked in. If the contractor missed something on there, we're saying, hey, it's on the plans. Sorry, we bid it. And if there is a change order that pops up or a potential one, that is our job, you know, as the city engineer as well as the city manager, to look at it and go, is this fair? Is it reasonable? Is it not in the plans? You know, is it above and beyond? The only caution I have is saying zero contingency, you know, do it per plan. Waiting 3 weeks or till then next meeting. Now we're incurring additional delay costs by the contract. Because he found something, he can't pour the basketball for whatever reason it was. Now we are delaying the project, which now they have right to claim for more. So having a little bit of contingency allows us to keep that moving. And I'll use the Cottage Street as an example. You know, we had a soft spot, we had the road open. You know, we want to get that one done fairly quickly. You know, so we had to do that for safety, the background. So there were some changes that we preliminary approved on the cost, double checked the values, seemed reasonable, and there was a reason for it. So that allowed us to move fairly. Now, if it's something that could wait, you know, say it's not going to delay. Yeah, I would think it'd be like, hey, let's wait, let's bring it back to council. You know, so that's where a certain dollar I would suggest, whatever that is.
So your opinion is gonna be 146,000 is the right number? Is that what you're saying?
Generally, you know, you're around percentage. You know, I mean, we don't know. It could be 50,000, 60,000. Yeah. I mean, it's up to the council to agree.
So do you think 25,000 is fine? I mean, we're not building a road, we're building a.
No, you're not building. I don't know what they could find. I mean, that's what I fully agree. I don't know what they're gonna.
Yeah. I mean, to me, yeah, I can't predict the future. If you want to go with the lower amount, with a lower amount, if you 25,000, we reach that and we come across some, you know, hopefully it's worst case scenario or something that's gonna, you know, a major fix. We'll come back and check out council. We'll need to plead for further authorization.
Go ahead, Councilor People.
This might be unpopular opinion, but I absolutely hear Counselor Children's hesitation and I agree. But on the flip side, I also hear from a city planner perspective that things come up, right? And I think the clarity I'm looking for is this contingency is not that, I don't know, asphalt went up in price, correct? Because that is based on the contractor saying, yes, I can do this bid for 1.46 and that's it. And they eat the cost of, you know, asphalt goes up, or does this contingency fund take into consideration the price of materials going?
The price of materials are locked in based on their bid, unless for some reason this goes past a year, you know, or 9 months, and then they have the chance to open up. And I have to look at the specs. I don't know what the specific escalation, you know, allowance is. But yes, generally it's like what cost they lock in and day 5, you know, number goes through the roof for concrete. No, they bid it for that price. And that's what the contractors are, you know, taking a gamble a little bit, you know, they're being competitive in the bids, but they're also saying, I can do it for this price.
Right, so what I'm hearing then is that this contingency fund is not because the contractor is saying I can do it for this amount of money. And then they come back and like, you know, it's actually going to be this much more and we eat into this contingency fund, right? What I'm hearing is that Andy is the gatekeeper of these funds. And we are trusting Andy to authorize something that is business critical. And I trust Andy to make that decision more so than wait 2 to 3 weeks to come back to council, further delay the project. I mean, we talk about it all the time about, are we going to meet this deadline? And just knowing that if we take away that contingency fund, or drastically reduce it, that's gonna continue to add to this timeline. And when you think about all the other things that we use directing aid for, right, past this August timeframe, and how does that impact it? So for me, I see both sides, and I think as a council, I would recommend a 5% contingency. I think that would be a compromise I would be acceptable with. And just knowing that I trust Andy to make those decisions, but 10% does seem like a bit much. And I'm open to other ideas or other suggestions, but I think we still have to give a little bit more wiggle room than just $25,000 for such a large project.
And I guess one question that I have is, and I know Councilor Sheldon mentioned it, but and maybe habit is not the right word, but if we're doing these projects and doing further, future projects, are we then just expecting that there should be a contingency on each future project, right?
Yes, I think so. But again, it's a contingency based on trust and need. So if we want to make our standard 5%, that could be our standard. So 2 examples, well, 3 examples. West Union, that project had so many complications with it, with engineering, with the slopes, with what the county would want, on and on and on and on. And sometimes there'd be a safety enhancement. So, multiple change orders. But then there are other projects. Cottage, very, very simple, except for that one soft spot, which we expected there might be, and the contingency is nice there. The Commercial Street project, which was a water line replacement and resurfacing, I don't think we used any contingency there. I think that project came under budget. So there's a yin and yang. It really depends on the complexity. Councilor Phage is probably right. I mean, this is one project at grade. It's not super complicated, but there will be some unknowns. There will be. I mean, I guarantee it. How much? Hopefully not 146,000 worth. Hopefully not 75,000 worth. Could there be 10 or 20 or something? That's not out of the realm of possibility, just because those things happen. And sometimes it's not what's unforeseen. Sometimes there could be a field design, the contractor meets with the engineer and says, you guys really didn't do this, but this could make the project so much better. Again, not trying to be oversold on something, but everyone agrees like, okay, yes, this would be a good enhancement. Let's spend the money. This is a good benefit. So there's those instances too. But I'm trying to leave some flexibility and being able to do projects on time. But I also want the comfort level that you guys have to. And if it's something like 5%, I think that's totally reasonable.
And for the record, I just want to say that it has nothing to do with not trusting you to run the process. I mean, you brought a good point, but I wanted to just make sure that that's not the issue. It's sort of like we're setting a precedent. If we're saying, each project that we're doing, that we're going to just do, 10% contingency, 5%, I could live with 5%, knowing that things will potentially come up. But if we say 5%, then I think that has to be our standard. That's something that moving forward, and that gives us a level of comfort. You can do your job, but then we can also have that comfort of knowing that, all right, and if it goes beyond that, he's, still coming back to us and talking to us about it and keeping us in the loop. We like that kind of thing. So I
think the contingency should be a moving target. When we're doing a bridge, which has maybe been played, and there's a water bridge, that's probably going to be more than 10%. We end up taking apart a bigger coming out and putting it back, maybe less than 10%, right? So I think, a moving target should be better. But I would like us to just be, focus on like a smaller number if we can. So I think I'm gonna go with 5%. Just go half, just because it's less, and this $75,000 seems to be a pretty good, seems to be more than we need for this redoing what we already have.
But I think you also bring up a good point too, that, that's where the site of a school used to be, and who knows what what that underneath the ground looks like from
100 years ago, but,
So, Councilor Martinez, any other thoughts or?
I would be in agreement with the 5%. I mean, I agree with Counselor Sheldon, though. I feel like if we set this and what you stated too, Mayor, is that, we set this precedent of like always having kind of this larger contingency. I don't know. I mean, I trust that hopefully the developer, whoever's taking the bid takes the job seriously, but I feel like it just gives an opportunity for something to come up on their end or something, where they can then take advantage of that percentage if it's too high, but
All right, what is the wish of the council?
I recommend adopting resolution 2187 to approve agreement with Pill Incorporated for Disney's park improvements with contingency of 5%.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I will second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilor Page, seconded by Councilor Papen. Discussion.
Looking at it, I have full faith in Brian and Andy, if it did come up. If we don't have to wait 3 weeks or a month like we're talking, then he can call a special session. I mean, we're a small city. We're not Portland where it takes hundreds of people to get through this, menagerie of trying to get something done. So I got faith in them, and I'm going to vote against the motion. I don't think the contingency should be there. We'll leave it up to the, let's come before council. We have to spend 75,000 or 100 to finish the project, and that's the way it is.
Come to council.
Yeah, come to council. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else? Discussion.
I think it's good to have a project manager have the power to do that. So I think we should have it just in there, just to expedite things.
I think also having a blanket 5-10% isn't always what's best suited for each job. So you think about a water line upgrade, and you think about that $200,000, and then you think about what 5% is, $10,000 or whatever it might be. That is a drop in the bucket when you're looking at a water line upgrade. And yes, the Jesse Mays project is really large. And it seems like 146,000 in contingency is a lot, which I agree. But I don't think that going forward, we should necessarily have a blanket contingency fund percentage. Go ahead.
No, I'll just say, we'll have more of a discussion about this internally about, all right, what are they gonna feel comfortable with and what are we expecting? Is a more manageable approach in that range, not always sometimes there's a 10% best practice. Well, maybe the project seems simpler than that and you can deal with less. So
Yeah, I'm not
case by case
suggesting,
basis, yeah.
I'm not suggesting we do 5% on everything in the world. I'm suggesting we do this one 5%. And probably different projects will have different needs, right? And we'll have to reach those each time. This one, we should 5%.
I agree.
Any comment?
I just think it's a safety to have the 5%. I mean, goes over that, then we can discuss it. But I don't think Andy needs to come to us every time there's a nickel and dime thing. We can bring it up on the Friday 5 or whatever. That's good enough for me.
I further view the contingency as being important because it's a cost saving measure. Time is money, right? So if we could do something on the field, on the fly, save some money there, that's fine. So that's why I do approve of contingencies in general.
Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion on the table by Counselor Phage to adopt resolution 2187 to approve the agreement with Pile Inc. for Jesse Mays Park improvement with a 5% contingency. It was seconded by Counselor Papen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can I have when this happens, can I have a verbal?
Yes. So we'll go around the room. Counselor Martinez, nay or yay?
Yay.
Counselor Smith,
Yay.
Counselor Papen, yay. Counselor Page,
Yay.
Counselor Kindle,
Nay.
Counselor Sheldon,
Nay.
and Mayor Lenahan, yay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have resolution number 2188, the adoption of the updated handbook. And Andy or Bill, who's taking this one
I was kind of hoping Brian would, but he's taking.
on? Thanks, Fred. Have a good night.
Yes, I will, because I'll let Bill pitch in a little bit later if he wants, but really a lot of this work predates Bill. We started this handbook update back in 2019. Based on, some changing language with CIS, with city attorney, and then obviously the big one in there with accruals. And then the pandemic happened and we put a lot of the things on hold for about a year and a half, almost 16 months or so. But then we picked things back up in 2021 after having discussions with employees and working very closely with Finance Director Reed and Library Director Doty. So she has the most, she has several employees under her watch. We picked that back up in earnest and worked closely with the CIS. I forget what her role is there, but they do a lot of the handbook updates, work closely with them, and then also with Heather Martin, our city attorney who specializes in this. So what I did in the packet on page 108 is the staff report starting this personnel handbook. And on the second page of that, I kind of did just a brief matrix of some of the major changes. It's not a vast overhaul. Some of this is just updating some of the language because of laws that had changed, either at the federal level or the state level. Some of this was getting in line with, so that a resolution was adopted earlier this year to observe Juneteenth as a holiday. Well, that would go into effect in 2023. At the same time, you would take away the floating holiday as part of that. So it's kind of a net on balance there. Incorporating a remote work policy, which there was a few details in our old handbook from 2016 about that, but honestly nothing like we had to put the time and effort and thought into it over the pandemic. So that's included in there. And then obviously the PTO portion as well. So a personnel handbook is something that every employee gets when they start. And obviously it's something that the council will adopt as sort of being the policies and the expectations of all the employees for the city of North Plains. We sent out the draft changes that we rolled into this back in mid-May, and had a Zoom meeting with all employees that wanted to attend to kind of go over any of the changes and answer the questions they may have. And then, of course, we had many discussions about this sort of stuff in our staff meetings as well with employees. So none of them are unaware of this. The biggest change in there, obviously, which is on page 3 of that staff report, is converting all of our accrued time to PTO, which there are a few cities in the state that do that. I think more and more are adopting that, but simply it's taking your vacation and sick time, combining that into one bucket, a personal time off bucket. And then that's accruals that can be used interchangeably with vacation or sick time or any other excusable absence from the previous model. the biggest change to do this was really to give employees more flexibility to help make us a bit of a competitive employer. One that shows, employees that we support them. If you got a family or you've got things you need to do, okay, you got this PTO bucket, and you can go ahead and use it. A lot of times, people can rack up 400 hours of sick time and they leave their job with it, and you can't cash any of that out. So we wanted to try to find some happy medium where, okay, if we combine this turns into another benefit for employees, but we can't necessarily, as we've talked about many times, be in the compensation arms race of a lot of our peer communities. So this is something that employees really like. As part of that, it gives employees the chance to cash out some of the PTO once a year if they keep enough time in the leave bank. That can be a little bit of a bonus at the end of the year, or whenever they choose to do so. If they have enough hours to be able to do that, they can cash that out. If employers are cashing it out when they're in step B, rather than cashing it all out at the end of employment when they're in step F, I'm sorry, that's, time that we're cashing out a little bit lower rate for the city as well. So there are some things in there, and then obviously the PTO would be capped too. And a lot of this was done through reading different white papers about what are the best approaches to PTO, how do you make a conversion, how do you make it fair for current employees, and then looking at some of the best practices that some other cities and counties on the state have been using too, and then working with the city attorney as well. So that is the biggest change there, but again, it's one to kind of help us equalize the playing field a little bit. We can't always be as competitive in some other areas with cities. So Bill, you put a lot of time into this as well. Is there anything you want to add?
I think that summarizes it. If you have questions, I think maybe I can drill down more on the PTO system, but I think Andy summarized it as well, so I don't have anything to add.
I guess I would just note if this is approved or when it's approved, the thought is would be to go into effect July 1, just line up with the fiscal year start.
Questions from council?
I was surprised the city had floating holidays. I thought the city just has regular holidays that we take them. I have floating holidays.
There was just one floating.
Okay, and I work 7 days, I work a shift. And if it's Christmas, so what? Somebody's gonna work it, so that means they give you Christmas somewhere else, right? So, but the city's shut down for floating holidays, so I'm kind of glad that's not in there anymore. It made no sense to have a random holiday, just an extra day off or something.
I'm guessing a lot of it was a message of the police, at the police department.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes.
And then it spread to all other employees, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes great sense. Excellent.
Other questions, comments?
Well, I have a few. I'd like to know what the fiscal impact of this decision is, this change. And I don't think there's anywhere in this document that really tells us what that is. I don't mind being a little liberal with some things, but in some ways, I'm not sure I understand the conversions and how that's going to benefit us. I think in general, I have not had time to go through every page of this. I want time to do that. My preference would be to get something on the fiscal impacts. And so I want to understand what this is going to cost the city. And in addition, I want time to study it more. I think there's some specific sections in there. To me, the remote work section's extremely liberal in the standpoint of, in some cases, lacking some definitions. I know that we need to address remote work. I know that obviously the pandemic forced many people to do that. But I really want a sense of, I want a better sense. I want more time to go through this. That's what I personally.
Well, I would agree on the PTO cap and cash out, but that's a new concept to me. And I just think that really like to understand that more. And also, what is the fiscal impact going to be on the city? You know, and I think, okay, well, how many of our employees, where do they fall within these dates, these anniversary dates, so on and so forth? This is a new concept to me, and so is it something that perhaps we can, if others feel the same way, take a little more time to digest this and to understand it, maybe bring it back, in a couple of weeks to review it again with additional questions, but how do others feel about this?
I think the PTO cap and PTO cash out is excellent. I think you see it a lot of times, instead of somebody not taking their vacation time or sick pay for 20 years, and then at the height of their powers, they retire and get a big huge check at their current rate. I think cashing out intermittently is better.
So they could save this up and then cash it out at the end of the year, kind of
It's
like a
forced to cap.
bonus.
It's capped. You can only carry this many hours on year. So if you work there 20 years, you get this time, but you don't get it carried over year to year at the year. It'll be capped at, what is the cap at, 80 hours? What was the cap? Say that?
The maximum amount that can be cashed out in
No.
any year is 80 hours.
80 hours.
That's the cash out maximum.
What is the cap of how many they can carry over?
So, the cap varies based on how long anybody's been employed at the city. So Lori is our second longest time employee, and she's been here for a little over 6 years. Almost 6.
Yeah.
So the cap in that category is 432 total PTO hours.
That they can carry over? Oh, I thought it was less than that. I thought you guys were cashed out in June, at a certain amount.
Oh, no, okay, so are you talking about conversion to July 1? Like,
I guess.
conversion to the new system on July 1, is that what you mean by carryover?
I mean, from year to year to year to year to year,
Right.
how much of your balance can you roll over to the next year?
There's an all-time cap for each employee based on how long they've been working at the city that carries over however many years until they hit that cap. You were correct in your, 432. The cap would be double your accrual rate. Yeah, so currently, in our current
That's a lot of
handbook,
hours.
you're capped at 400 hours. So part of this is if you're able to cash them out during this, if we have that possibility, we don't even reach that. This is part of the incentive to try to have not people retiring and then they can cash out 400 or 500 hours. They can.
It sounds like
cash
they
this out.
can.
Well, yeah, I mean, that possibility always exists. Yes, depending on the employee.
So Intel has it for hourly employees. The cap is 120 hours. And then they cash you out of that. That's how you carry over.
They also give
Now-
sabbaticals,
Yeah, true.
which we won't be able to do.
Yeah, but I'm saying that 400 hours, that's about every year. That's a lot.
Right, which is what's currently on the books.
Well, nobody accrues 400 hours a year. The maximum accrual in a calendar year would be somebody who's worked here at least 20 years, and they would accrue 288 hours in 1 year. So it would take them over a year to reach their cap. It would basically, yeah. But the bottom line is that the accrual keeps going until they hit that cap. If it takes them 4 years to get there, that's how long it takes. If it takes them, 3 years, that's how long it takes. What we're trying to avoid with the system also is people not taking time off. And then when they do leave the city, we're paying that balance out at their highest salary level.
True.
And this system encourages them to take time off and get the liability off the books at lower pay than waiting till the very end. So that's part of the effort here. The quick fiscal impact number, just to think about as you come back with more questions next time, is
There's the additional, we're really only adding 100 to 200 hours cap on average to what already exists. So it's kind of an incremental impact because we're already capping people out. But modeling the impact of that really kind of depends on making a lot of assumptions about how different people take their time at different times. So we have to generalize very greatly.
Wouldn't it be easier math just to have a one cap number that people look cap and then it gets cut off? Not that in my to carry the one, is without an Intel, I mean, I'm still there. There's 120 hours. If you're there 20 years, you have 120 hours to carry over. If you're there 1 year, well, if you turn 20 hours and then, carry it over. So they had that to make it easier for accounting across the books without having a moving target or any of that. Would that be easier for our small city? I mean, there's even less employees. I mean,
Well, again, to Andy's point, Intel offers sabbaticals after every several years.
yeah, true.
So, and to encourage people to stay, the idea is to offer reasons to stay, and that means higher accrual over time. So that's part of it as well. So it's scaled for that. Yeah, it's another form of a longevity bonus that we really don't offer.
So having the higher accrual, I just set the number at 300, and people are wanting to get to it, work longer to get it, and I don't know, having moving targets kind of weird. Just have that, they set the number at you want to have most on the books, and leave it at that.
Well, I mean, the reality is, if, we put these rates into the accounting software and the math is done. I mean, there's no confusion, I guess I would say, because, we run reports on accrual all the time. I have one up right now. If there were any questions about current accrual, that sort of thing. But once you get the information into Springbrook, the accounting software, it's all tracked and the math is clear. So there's no, tracking it and doing things with it wouldn't be a problem on our end. Is what I would say.
I think I'd like to see some examples of what, it could look like with someone who's been there 2 years versus someone who's been there 10 years. And again, then it comes back to what would be the liability for the city. I mean, I could see okay, I've got to have at least 80 hours of PTO remaining in my cash out, but if I have 160 hours, I can cash out 80 of those, and it's kind of like a bonus, like a year-end bonus for myself, But okay, what does that look like in an example of a real time with like folks that we have? And then I think about our employees actually taking time off, are they taking vacations, because it's really important, to regenerate and rejuvenate oneself, because in a smaller organization, sometimes you might feel like you can't take time off because there might not be that backfill. And, I think about that too, right? And then you just like, well, I'm just going to save up. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to cash out and then I'll take a vacation or something. But I would like to wrap my head around that a little bit, maybe with a couple of examples of just what that looks like. That's possible. Council Pete.
I just want to say thank you to Bill and to Robin, especially for all the work you guys put into this, because this is a lot to digest, and I just want to say I appreciate all your hard work. I will also echo that it is a little, it's a bit complicated to digest, and this is exactly what I do for my work. And if I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it, I just think about other people and new employees to the city as well. And I just had a couple of questions. One, it sounds like PTO is accrued based on hourly punches, right? So hourly employees accrual is granted after every pay cycle. It's not just front loaded as a grant at the beginning of a fiscal year. Is that correct?
On an annual basis, that's correct. And it is full-time employees. So it like right now, on your paycheck, it shows what your accrual was for your sick time and your vacation time, 2.6 hours or whatever it was. It's purely incrementally accumulated. That's correct.
Okay, so we don't have any hourly employees in the city that clock in and clock out with punches?
We do, but part-time employees are not subject to this program. This is for full-time employees only. Part-time employees all over the library, and then when we do have seasonal public works employees around or an employee around, we're currently hiring, please spread the word. But the public works part-time employee would also count. They would continue to accrue sick time per Oregon state law, but part-time employees will not be part of the PTO program because part-time employees don't get vacation. So this would replace the vacation and sick for part-time employees.
I see. And then the numbers that were listed in that beautiful graph that shows, your maximum accrual.
Mhm.
How did we get to those numbers? Is that based on neighboring cities to try to align? Or how did we get to that many hours or that much accrual?
I'll be honest with you, all of the analysis that led to that was done before I got there. But what I will say is, I think 5 or 6 different agencies in Oregon that have done PTO conversions were viewed and kind of used as examples of how it should work. And I think the model that ended up informing some of this was Lane County, actually. I think the conversion and accrual rates that they use, this was modeled after more than other agencies, I would say.
Okay, and then one other minor question, but knowing, and I can't find the graph right now in the huge handbook, but knowing that the 20+ year employee has 72 days worth of vacation they could cash out. Transparently, is that realistic in a small city? Can someone really take off 72 days in a year and still have their position covered? And I'm just thinking about the work-life balance as well for city employees that, Andy, I'm just going to use you as an example. I'm sure you don't get to take that much time off, right? And I think about if you wanted to take a backpacking trip for 2 months in the middle of summer, because you have 76 days of vacation accrued. Is that realistic? Can we actually accommodate that for city employees to take off this vacation time? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be granting this much, but I just want to make sure this is realistic and that we can actually fulfill that.
That would be a sabbatical for me. That'd be great. No, we actually have some language in there too about how much time the maximum amount of time you can take off a year. I forget what that is. It's probably 4 weeks or something like that. But that's, or maybe it's, yeah. Anyway, that language is in there too. And again, I just want to be clear here. We would have the most, burnt out employee possible if someone worked here 20 years, never took a day off. And the worst case scenario was, they had a cap over 500 hours. More than likely, there'll be somewhere between that and where Blake ended up who was here over 20 years and basically had no time at the end. There'll probably be a happy medium in there. So I think that's what the expectation should be. And again, we wanted to find some way to have some sort of longevity bonus and kind of think outside the box and be innovative and show this as a recruitment tool, especially the cash out portion. We may not always have the ability to be the most competitive in the Portland metro area. This is like a bonus at the end of the year. As long as you have this much time left, you could do this once a year. It's kind of like a Christmas bonus if the employee so chooses, and it's up to them to do that. But no, no one's going to take 72 days off or 72 vacation. Unless we plan that out, maybe a lot of time in advance to comment.
Thank you. And I think the final thing is I would love a more simplified version I love the detail around this, and I just want to recognize the hard work you have dumped into this. But I would love a more simplified version to make it more transparent for everyone. 'Cause again, if we're having a hard time digesting this, I just think about what does that look like to outsiders, right? Or to someone, a prospective employee, and maybe even an addendum or something that says, after July 1st, 2022, this will happen, but instead of just including this verbiage of at this date in 2022, this will happen, and at this date in 2023, this will happen. It's a lot to process and a lot to digest. So I would just love that, maybe just a 1 page as of this date, instead of including it in the actual handbook. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Counselor Smith or Counselor Martinez?
I never got that many days off in my life. I'll be honest. I mean, I guess I just have be able to take that many days off because job requirement. So I'm just kind of overwhelmed by the days off.
Yeah, before your first year, you get 144. After your first year, you get 192. Wowzers, right? Hours, that's excellent.
But that would be combined vacation and sick.
Boy, that'd be great.
Like currently it's 56 vacation for 1 year.
Right, so I knew this was gonna be shocking to some folks. Yeah, but
It's a new
people
concept
that
for
have
me.
families, multiple kids, if they're sick, if you're sick, husband's sick, someone's hospitalized, you can burn through sick time easily. And then what do? You don't have sick time. You have other employees doing that now.
If your family's sick, there's leave laws, right, for that?
Yeah, but you're not paid for
You're
it.
not paid for it.
You just have to have your job guaranteed.
Right.
I mean, this is a way, again, like I've said this 5 times, I've probably said it 100 times in the last year, trying to support employees. People have multiple, again, especially with sick time. Some people, they're young and healthy, they won't ever use it. Cool, this is a benefit for them. Other people, and this is real life stuff, they have no sick time. They're using it on themselves and their family members, and then the rest of us are donating to them. That's a real life example too. And so this was a way to kind of help each class more, of employee. So just one example.
I mean, I think it's just a different concept to wrap our head around. And, of course, I tried to apply it to my situation. Like, what does my vacation time look like? What does my sick time look like? And started to add it up. And knowing that I'd been there for, almost 8 years, and it's slightly over what the old, accrual is, right? So I was looking, there's some benefits like working for private sector versus, but then there's some benefits public sector. I mean, it is what it is, but it's just, for me, it is just a new concept to try to wrap around. And obviously I don't want to begrudge any time off for people, especially with, families or sick members. I mean, it's important that we take care of our people. But I also think that there's some, I would appreciate some bullet points or maybe, and it's like I said, examples, needs something a little more simpler to go, oh, all right, that's real, that makes sense, this looks good, whatever. Would help me personally.
Yeah, and other people, I don't know. I would have to take a leave, and I don't get paid on leave either. That's not universal to just city workers. They don't get paid on leave. But it's pretty generous. Yeah, I guess it's great to be a city employee because you get the holidays off, and after 1 year, you get 24 days off too. That's a lot. I don't know. Maybe we should. I don't know. That's the thing here or there. The PTO cap, though, that's probably what we should look at, and maybe cap it at something smaller than 576 hours, 20 years. maybe kept at the 10-year part at 480. Let's see that. Yeah, that sounds to be, the PTO accrual cap is, the only thing I'm worried about is the wages as we go on are going to get pretty huge, and I understand the thought of having 2 times your annual accrual on there, but that is like a slide chart. Maybe have a cap. Hey, back it in. I mean, the guy's been here for 5 years and they're able to accrue up 500 hours. Cool on them, right? Maybe just make it just a solid one for whatever that is.
I want to make sure that Counselor Martinez has a chance to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I echo kind of everyone's sentiment. I feel like I need more time to really look at this. And it does seem like a lot to me. I don't really understand. I've never even heard of kind of doing this process like this with the PTO accrual. So it's a little bit different for me to understand all those pieces of it.
So you kind of get a sense for what we're looking for, maybe to bring this back. Or
I think so. I'll regroup
Okay.
with Bill after this and we'll put some more thought into this section and maybe have some examples to show and give an effort at a fiscal impact. But like you said, I mean, we can do that, some modeling, especially from what we'll be playing in the software, but ultimately we can kind of do best case, worst case, and somewhere in between is what workers' habits are going to be to fit that in, but we'll have some idea.
thank you.
Sure.
All right. Next up is Resolution 2189. It's the Washington County Sheriff's Office contract renewal. They're there.
All right. Okay, well, we had a work session on this a couple, was it probably 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, March or something like that, discussing, any changes we may want to see in the next IGA. As we know, we're about to finish up year 3 of the initial 3-year contract with the Sheriff's Office for police services. And so it was the wish to just extend this by 5 years instead of having to do this again after 3 years. So what's in there in the staff report? So what they did do was supply new revised contract amount, at least for this first year. And as we're kind of ramping up to enhanced coverage, enhanced patrols, we put a buffer in there for $100,000 of OT. That's our side. It's not a contingency. It's not something they're authorized to spend. They have to do this with our authorization to do so. But that would be ramping up as we finish out this year, move into 2023 to try to reach that 24/7 coverage threshold. And we agreed that in January we would revisit whatever the service levels are. So right now we're sticking with the status quo of 2.75 officers with some overtime built in. But in January, we'll revisit that, really depending on what happens with the ballot measure levy in November, and revisit that. We need to revise some of those things. But as it currently stands, the proposed contract of services for 2023 would increase by 5.5% over what was going to be budgeted. A lot of this is because of the inflationary issues. Everyone has COLA increases, so that's really the big driver in that. But for now, as we're ramping up and using OT that would come from reserves, and we had planned on 90 to 100 this year and $100,000 next year, and so that's kind of where things stand there. Other than that, not a whole lot of changes in the IGA from the existing contract. I think that was based on the work session before, just the conversations that we had with the sheriff's office that was at the meeting, and with council as well. And that's kind of it for me. Bill, do you have anything from you sat in on several of those meetings?
Not really. I would just kind of highlight that there's flexibility in the contract to go back about stepping up service levels over time. It's not fixed. So just want to emphasize that. So this just gets us started on 5 more years, but we have that process. We have that ability down the road to revisit when we need.
Questions from council?
Question for me. So
Councilor
the
Keenan?
5.5%, that was an increase, that was from the county, right? That came from the county. This is for a one time, or the county had the option to increase it every year of the inflation rate if they need.
Councilor Kendall, that's correct. That's,
Okay.
yeah, that's,
Okay.
that, a lot of that is factoring in
Okay.
the COLA we did this
Alright.
year.
Other questions or comments?
I gotta move towards 11, faster the better. Can't afford that much police. Can't afford not to have them. It's just too much pressure on the budget as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, my thoughts for the levy as well is, I just wanted to take the money and start spending it. I would like to try to figure out a way to get our police force back in-house, because these overtime costs for everything is just multiplied by 1.5 across the board. And there's a lot of surplus we're giving out to the county. And even if we had 24-hour coverage, I was read a news article about down in Dairy Creek, somebody reported to the police that they're getting their house broken into. They're having a spec house built. And they had on camera, so the cop went out there and says, "Oh, there's 2 guys stealing stuff. I'm just gonna sit here and watch them for a while." And then they watched them drive away. Like, "Ooh, that was a close one," you know? So, I mean, even if they have cops here at night, it's not they're gonna be doing a whole lot. Like we had that, these people came and did that organized walking down the street with 12 or so people. We had a cop here at night. They wouldn't have done anything either. They would have called for backup and, you know, that would have been it. So I would like us, when we do our levy, to figure out how much it would cost to bring the police back to us again. Having a bunch of officers, the reason we went there is because we were just kind of dropped on us. We had to get out in this room. We didn't have, our budget's already way too high for what we had. But we're putting up there again. And when we get a lot more police officers, that 1.5 multiplier is going to add up when we have more police. So at that point, there's going to be efficiency cost of bringing it back in-house. And if we get those numbers done, we can see what we need for that levy to, in a 10-year plan, be able to put it back, to have our own police force. We can't do it this year or even within 5 years. We will be able to do something to bring it back and save costs by bringing it in-house.
So you're wanting to see when we start the process and talk about the levy and that sort of thing, you want to see a comparison between the Washington County Sheriff's, like the contract versus in-house, like if we were to actually bring our police department back to North Plains.
Right, and there's going to be some costs associated with that, some fixed costs, such as evidence building and a lot of land and office for them, you know, that's going to need to happen. So we need to figure out how much it's going to cost and kind of go up with a plan to bring that back. This contracting out needed to be done, and it still needs to be done. So this cost we have, we're stuck with, and there's no real good alternate for that. But once you get the levy handled, there becomes an opening to plan it out appropriately, where we get more bang for our buck. Because if you get 2 more officers, we're gonna price for 3 officers for that. So,
It's all.
if it's this budget right here, it's time and a half as it is. Overtime or not, this contract we're looking at is time and a half cost for them. So they're taking the cost they have and multiplying it by 1.5. And that's what they're coming up with, this number. They had it many times and we discussed it. So this right here is 1.5. The overtime may be 1.5 on top of 1.5, I don't know. But right now, we're bleeding cash and we're doing it in an inefficient manner. So when we talk about the levy, we need to have some work done to see how much it will cost to bring it in-house and how much time we need to actually do that. So the extra money we get from the levies, if they approve everything else happens, we should probably look at putting that away and building up with it.
Is that a realistic ask? To be during this process of the levy deep dive?
I think we did the numbers already when we were talking with Jesse and we decided to go to Washington County. We did the numbers of how much it's going to cost to do all the stuff. So those numbers are archived somewhere.
Oh, I know where they are.
And
I was there.
and we shouldn't take too much more. Maybe we can work with the sheriff, say, hey, how much will this cost, you know? This is our plan. We want to go and become self-sufficient. What do you guys think of this also, right? So we can probably get some help there.
May I add one comment?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we have to look at the factors of this nobody wanting to work. I don't know if we're prepared to take that gamble as a small city. You know, if you need 4 people and we can only hire 2. But with the county, they're obligated to backfill those positions. So that's where I'm a little bit nervous about going on our own. Right now, we need to just get this levy going and get those officers in the streets.
I'm looking at a 10-year plan. It's gonna be about 10 years.
Excuse me?
It's gonna be about 10 years.
Oh, well, that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
I may not be here. So. You guys will have to deal with it, not me, but that's the only thing I'm nervous about is can we hire people? I mean, look at the public works, you know, we can't fill that slot right now because of whatever.
Right.
Nobody's wanting to, we're in a crunch and I don't want to be that in police.
Mhm.
I really don't, in my opinion.
I think the county takes up a lot of that liability.
Oh, I mean, huge. I mean, right now, I think we're between a rock and a hard spot. I think we need to just stay with it. So at this point,
I agree. I appreciate you having a 10-year vision, Counselor Page,
Yeah.
but I think right now it's just one thing at a time, and our biggest tackle right now is IGA and the levy. And you know, when we do hit that 7,000 population growth, yes, I think that would be an appropriate conversation, but I think for now, I can't even entertain the idea of reviewing numbers for a potential police department at this stage of our city's growth.
There's just too many complications. I mean, you have to go out and buy all new equipment, police cars, transition of hiring new policemen. You said couple more buildings, keeping records.
Yeah, so that's would be, they need to know how much it's gonna cost, right? Because that's not gonna be anything.
But who knows what inflation will be like, you know, I mean, I think it's what came first, chicken or the egg, and I don't want to waste staff time in trying to populate potential what if numbers, when right now we are just trying to pass a levy to even be able to staff police within our city. So again, I really appreciate the site to be able to look ahead 10 years, but I don't feel like we're there as a city or anywhere close to being an independent police department again.
And I got a feeling with new laws coming as they do, it's not gonna get any easier. I mean, that's what happened with the fire department. You know, consolidated because it's easier to do. Cornelius is able to pull it off, maybe we can look at it. But I don't think they're able to either.
If I may,
Go ahead.
on the fire department, you know, we were here too, we had only 2 people on the truck. And when you need 5 to put out a fire, so we had no choice, I mean, we had to go with that,
Right.
the administration alone was overwhelming, we just didn't let them have it. Now we got 360, 24 hours a day. Pick up the phone and they come, so,
You know,
thing
Washington
here.
County has the same deal, so.
Yeah. I agree.
Counselor Martinez?
Yeah, I can't fathom reverting back to North Plains Police. The county just brings so many more things that we won't be able to provide, you know, like other professionals, investigators. I mean, there's so much more than just the kind of policing of the town. And even with having since contracting with the county, I see even, you know, a lot more just county sheriff cars kind of in town versus just our, you know, 1 or 2 North Plains officers we might have had patrolling, but I just can't, that's like a 20-year plan in my mind right now.
So Sheldon, do you want to weigh in? Okay, all right. So just hearing the comments around the table regarding the levy, and obviously there's very strong interest in the levy piece. But to circle back around then with the IGA, that's something that we need to address tonight. And staff has given us a recommendation on resolution 2189. Just again, are there any additional questions or comments about the IGA? If not, I'll entertain a motion. It's the wish of the council.
I'll move to adopt resolution 2189.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilor Martinez, seconded by Councilor Papin. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Good discussion. Thank you. All right, moving on. New business, unfinished business, nothing to report there. We're down to the city manager report and the 3J consulting update as of June 2022. Any comments or questions from Andy?
Any
Council?
questions?
Okay.
No, a couple things I'll add. Yes, not only do we not have a public works director, but we lost another public works crew member on Friday. So we posted that job on Friday and for some summer help too. And we're getting some interest. So hopefully we can have those filled up before the end of this month. But in the meantime, I got to give a lot of kudos to Andrew and Javier. Those guys, even when Blake left, they said, hey, we want more responsibilities. We want to step up, and they've been doing that. They've been great. The rest of staff has too. You know, Lori and I were in here putting a lot of this together because Javier's out fixing the water leak. So everyone's pitching in. You know, these times aren't always great, but brings us a little bit closer together. But those guys have been great, Andrew and Javier. So they're not here, but tell them I give them kudos if you run into them. You'll probably see
I
one
think
of
they're
them.
right.
Yeah, they're doing a great
Okay,
job.
I'll do
Trying
that.
to step up. I sent out part of the message on Friday. It was a food pantry is going to close at one more meeting. And we said she's going to move whatever inventory she has left to Glencoe. 5 minutes after I sent that email, Patty emailed me and said, hey, Ruby's going to bring a lot of her stuff over to the senior center. After all, I don't know why Ruby didn't tell me that when I asked her just the day before. But so anyway, the senior center will have a presence there with the food pantry, and they'll have some space there. So it'll continue in some capacity And the one at Glencoe High School, I think is gonna be new, so it'll be down the road. If folks in need are going into Hillsborough or wherever to shop, they can supplement their stuff there at Glencoe too. Speaking of the levy meeting, we're gonna have the first working group meeting on June 22nd in the evening. And that's kind of a busy week because we've got a council meeting that week, the levy meeting that week, and then the Rimble property is gonna have their neighborhood meeting on the 23rd. And Jesse Mays, I think that's at 5:30, so people might be interested in that. Other than that, I kind of reported most of the stuff on Friday.
Any comments or questions? Counselor Papin, then Counselor Smith.
Really quick, just want to say I love the Friday Five, so thank you. And I think my only ask is to maybe copy and paste that into a city manager report on the public record so that our constituents can read it as well on the website. But other than that, I love it.
Sure. Okay.
Counselor Smith.
Yes, I guess that sometimes when an emergency comes up, you don't realize until they show up. But having our workers show up on Sunday to take a look at that, Andrew, it's kind of, I went over and looked at it myself on Sunday and today. It looked like it was patchwork from before. I'm not sure, is that Taylor Morris's? I'm concerned that they should maybe cover the cost for it, and why was it patched before?
I don't know all of those details. Back then, there was a public works director. I wasn't intimately involved with everything. But yeah, there was a section, I think they had a bad saddle from what I remember hearing, getting the recap over yesterday, today, in that area before. And so there, initially, that's what they thought the work was gonna be. It was actually a service line, it was a piece of copper that blew out, and that was the issue today.
Because I saw the water bubbling up through where they had cut the patch at.
Yeah,
It looked like they had to do a lot of work to take care of that today too.
well, they knocked it out pretty quick, considering there's just two of them, but
Yeah.
But
My other one was the ice cream social. I thought that real well. The boss told my boss was happy that a couple of people stepped up, including Bill, so. But I did hear a lot of comments saying, oh, I didn't even know you guys had an ice cream social that day. And so we could have had a lot more, but is there a way to inventory the banners that we have to see about putting them up? I know you're shorthanded already.
yeah, I'm gonna do it sometime this week. I'm gonna get up in the loft and count them myself. So
That way,
people have been asking for a couple weeks, so, yeah.
and I'm gonna go back to what back a year ago, electronic board. I still think that's a good idea. For people coming in, even having one for the library. Because they have a lot of programs. They're almost like the Parks and Rec, not of stuff they put on. And I don't think they're able to get all the words out too, about the Bolo Man. It's because I brought that up to a couple of people, they didn't. They don't get Facebook, and then I think on the ice cream social, even in our monthly magazine came out after the ice cream social. So,
I know that you've got Facebook and you've got the NPEA and the city, and I've heard from several people asking, I didn't know, and where do you go to get the information? And it kind of baffles me because there's so many people on, I don't keep track of who's on Facebook, right? But there are a lot of people on that community page, and I feel like the administrators on that page, they push out the information about what's going on in the city. So, you can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
And then it falls back on the responsibility of the end user too. So, we can keep pushing it out on Facebook and newsletter and whatnot, but at some point, and the calendar, at some point, you just gotta go end user, but make it a priority.
I'm
to
just
look at
saying, if
these
we had
pages.
something like, we didn't have the banner up this year. which is
Right. But the banner really, I agree. I think the banner is something that really helps.
And I think, like I said, last year, remember, we didn't have that many people, and then you posted on Facebook that we're having now. All of a sudden, a group showed up.
Sure.
So I'm sure that there's, my wife just got on Facebook. And
And
so I know there's quite a few people that probably don't do Facebook.
yeah. And I know North Plains Elementary had their carnival night the same night from 5 to 7.
And then when they were driving by after the carnival, they noticed that we.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I heard that
So,
too.
yeah.
So,
You know, banner is supposed to be a banner. Wouldn't you think, oh, the banner's missing? I wonder if they're doing that. Where's the next place you could go, you know, look and search information?
One quick thing, I feel like we have a lot of untapped potential with our city app. So I don't know if that's something Corinne or someone else could do, and this is very low hanging fruit, but even a push notification. Because I know I saw someone post on the North Plains community page a screenshot about the Bubble Man. And I was like, oh, I haven't even opened up the app in a few months. Let me go in there and so potentially even the app and having a push notification for calendar events or something like that.
You may need to turn them on, because we do that. You guys not get those?
I do.
Yeah, I-
You have it set to get one.
yeah, you should be getting them. And it was probably right when you download the app, it'll ask if you want to receive notifications. We usually send them out for every event, the day of, and then a couple days before too.
Good learning lesson. For me.
All right. Any other comments?
The Bubble Man, we didn't. I think they said there were 200 people here for that.
All right. Any council reports?
Oh.
I know we're early in the month, but
I guess I'll bring up another one.
go ahead.
Veterans. I thought that went real well too. So,
Yeah, it's a good turnout.
right.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we got the veteran park and they're able to. Ran into somebody from Cornelius that was there, so
Yeah.
they came up to go to Veterans Park, so.
Yeah, I spoke with Mayor Truax and he came out because their city didn't organize anything. And, he came out because of,
Right.
got the invitation, but some cities were not even having them. So that's good.
Here. Yeah,
Yes, please.
yeah, I want to thank whoever put that on. That was good. I don't know who's all involved in that. I just showed up and that was well done. That's very grateful for the veterans that we have.
We have 2 ladies who stepped up and we're taking it on
Taking it
now.
on. Yeah.
Cindy Hurst has been very instrumental in the organizational aspect and the execution of it. And so she put it out there saying, I need help, and
Okay.
asked a couple people,
Wow.
and boy, they showed up and said,
All right.
let's do it. So, yeah, it's nice. So, group effort. Any other counselor reports? All right, if not, then I'm gonna go ahead and give your evening back to you. Go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:28. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye.